Chapter 1. The Spark in the Park. The drone spiraled like a wounded bird, rotors whining as it plunged into the mirrored surface of the Central Park lake. Emma Rivers winced as the splash echoed off the stone edges. A few tourists gasped. One child clapped, delighted by the unexpected crash landing. Emma, however, let her camera fall against her chest, hanging from its worn canvas strap. "Perfect," she muttered under her breath. "Absolute poetry." October sun filtered through the fiery canopy, golds, russets, deep crimsons, reflecting across her freckles. This was supposed to be the simple part of her assignment, just a few atmospheric shots of autumn in New York before her flight to Iceland tomorrow. Easy, familiar, safe. Instead, she just drowned her backup drone in the most inconvenient and public part of the park. She kicked off her boots and paced to the water's edge, calculating angles, depth, and the likelihood of pneumonia. Before she could commit to the foolish idea of rolling up her jeans and wading in, a voice behind her said, "Hold this." She turned just in time to have a leather wallet shoved into her hands. "What?" But the man was already sprinting past her, peeling off his gray sweater in one fluid motion. His t-shirt clung to broad shoulders, scar visible above his right eyebrow, dark hair ruffled by the wind. And then he dove straight into the lake. There was a collective cheer from the peanut gallery of fall-loving tourists. Emma blinked, frozen, wallet still held awkwardly between her palms. He resurfaced a moment later, sputtering and triumphant, one hand raised above him, clutching her dripping drone like a medieval knight retrieving Excalibur. You sputtered as he sloshed back to shore. "Are you insane?" "Frequently," he said, grinning up at her. Water rolled off his jawline, his eyelashes heavy and soaked. "But I looked like you were about to jump in with boots on, and that seemed way more insane." He stepped onto the grass, shoes squelching. "Lucas," he added, as though introductions were perfectly natural in this state. "Lucas Green. And you owe me coffee, and maybe a dry sweater." Emma stared at him. Her brain was buffering. "Emma," she managed. "Nice to meet you, Emma," he said, handing her the battered drone. "Want to tell me why I just took a swim for a stranger, or is that a mystery for later?" She was torn between mortification and laughter. Laughter won. "I was doing a wide shot of the trees, and the wind shifted hard." "A tragic tale," he said solemnly. "Let's get you that coffee before you try to drown anything else." 20 minutes later, they were standing in line at Blue Bottle Coffee on the Upper West Side. Lucas's sweater was wrapped around his torso like a towel. He'd refused to put it back on because it weighs as much as a small planet now. Emma kept stealing glances at him. Something about him seemed carved from the outdoors. Sun-warm, mountain-solid, yet he had an easy humor that belonged to someone used to talking people off metaphorical ledges. "Are you a local?" she asked. "Technically from Denver," he said, brushing wet hair back with a sheepish gesture. "Visiting a friend for a few days. You?" "Brooklyn." "So I rescued local technology. Do I get honorary New Yorker status?" "You get a latte, and maybe a clean t-shirt, if I can find one." His grin deepened. "Already our second date. This is going incredibly well." Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks. She blamed the coffee shop. It was too warm. They wandered the High Line afterward, sipping from paper cups. Fallen leaves stuck to Lucas's stamped sneakers. Wind pulled at Emma's red hair, scattering strands around her shoulders. They talked about nothing important. Photography, mountain trails, the merits of New York bagels versus Colorado pastries. "Nothing beats altitude bread," Lucas claimed, which Emma insisted was not a real thing. There was a buoyancy to the conversation, like stepping onto a bridge and finding it steady beneath your feet. As dusk softened the city skyline, they ended up on a small metal bridge overlooking the West Village. String lights glowed along the railing. A busker played a slow, sweet guitar melody. Emma leaned forward to capture the scene with her vintage film camera. When she lowered it, Lucas was watching her, expression gentler than she expected. "You look happy," he said. "I'm surprised," I admitted. "Today started badly. And then I spectacularly belly-flopped into a lake." She laughed. Their eyes caught, not the clumsy glance of strangers, but something charged, quiet, impossibly familiar. He leaned a little closer. She felt her pulse spike. "Almost." Emma stepped back. "I can't," she said quickly. I'm not ready." Lucas studied her, expression unreadable for a long beat. Then he slid his hands into his damp pockets and nodded once. "No pressure," he said softly. "I wasn't asking for anything, except maybe a chance." She exhaled. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." He pulled out his phone, "But can we at least exchange numbers? Otherwise I jumped into a lake for nothing." She hesitated, then typed her number into his contacts. He smiled, not disappointed, not demanding, just warm. "Good night, Emma." He walked away with the easy stride of someone who wasn't afraid of what came next. Emma stood alone on the bridge until the last of the orange light slipped behind the skyline. Chapter 2. Pixels and Coffee Foam. For 2 months, they lived inside each other's pockets without ever being in the same place. It started with a simple message from Lucas. "Still drying out from the lake. My shoes may never recover." Emma replied with a photo of the drone sitting on her radiator, wrapped in a towel like a recovering patient. And something about the exchange clicked. Every day after that, a new message arrived, sometimes at dawn, sometimes late at night. Emma found herself reaching for her phone before her morning coffee, before she even brushed her teeth, scanning for his name. From Iceland, she sent him a wide shot of blue-white glacial caves. "Do you still think altitude bread is a thing?" "Absolutely. Come to Colorado and I'll prove it." "I'm in Iceland." Pathetic excuse. Plane ticket from there can't be that expensive. From Morocco, she texted him a picture of a market stall overflowing with spices, saffron, cinnamon, turmeric. "Smells amazing even through the screen. It also smells like a camel stepped on my boots." Glamorous. You have no idea. Lucas sent videos of latte art competitions he practiced at Everbean, his café in Aspen. He drew hearts that swirled into mountain peaks or foam flowers with delicate petals. "Are you flirting with me through milk? Firefighters put out fires, but yours keeps starting." Wow. I never claimed to be subtle. One night, after a long shoot in the Moroccan desert, Emma lay on a rooftop terrace, wrapped in a blanket, stars dripping across the sky. She typed without thinking. What if this is just a vacation fling in our heads? The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, reappeared. "I don't do pretend. Only real." Emma closed her eyes. Real was terrifying, but she was starting to want it anyway. Chapter 3. Snow-Bright Reunion. Aspen smelled like pine, frost, and wood smoke, a symphony of winter layered over the December cold. Emma stepped off the shuttle, her breath steaming in the crisp mountain air, her camera bag thumping at her hip. Her assignment was simple: shoot Aspen's Christmas lights for a holiday travel feature. Emotionally simple? Not so much. She checked into a small inn with creaking floors and cinnamon-scented hallways, then wandered into the town center, tugging her hat over her hair. Snow drifted around her like confetti. She turned the corner and froze. Everbean. It was smaller than she expected. Warm yellow lights glowed through frosted windows. A chalkboard sign read, "Today's roast, winter ember." Today's warning, the barista is tall, grumpy, and may challenge you to a snowball fight. She pushed the door open. It jingled. And there he was. Lucas looked up from behind the counter, dark hair longer since New York, sleeves rolled up, forearms dusted with espresso grounds. For one suspended moment, neither of them moved. His smile broke first, slow, disbelieving, bright. "Emma?" She couldn't speak. Her throat tightened. He rounded the counter in 3 long strides. "You're here," he said, stopping inches away. Snow melted on her coat. His voice dropped, roughened by something she didn't dare name. "You're actually here?" "I had a work thing," she managed. "Right, work thing." He reached past her, flipped the sign on the door to closed. "Lucas!" "Ice skating," he said. "Under the stars. No excuses." She laughed breathlessly. "I didn't agree to—" "Too late. You flew halfway across the world. I'm claiming my date." His hand hovered near hers, just asking. She took it. The ice rink was nearly empty, string lights twinkling above, soft music humming from hidden speakers. Snowflakes began to fall, slow, drifting, gentle. Lucas wasn't graceful on skates. Emma found this endearing. He wobbled, cursed under his breath, and I snorted loudly enough that an elderly couple stared. "You're enjoying this too much," he said, regaining balance. "I'm documenting your suffering." "Oh yeah? Where's your camera?" "In my soul," she said solemnly. He laughed, that warm, unguarded laugh she'd memorized through voice notes. They drifted toward the center of the rink, snow catching in their hair. Lucas's hands found her waist, tentative, careful. "Emma," he murmured, breath warm against her cheek. She tilted her face up. The kiss was slow, snow-soft, carefully unspooling like something fragile and long-awaited. Heat bloomed through her, thawing something she'd thought permanently frozen. But then, Lucas pulled back. His expression shuddered. He stepped away, hands falling. "I shouldn't—" "Lucas?" she whispered. "I can't lose someone again." The words dropped between them, as heavy as ice. Emma swallowed hard, and realized she'd only seen the surface of his shadows. Chapter 4. Ghosts in the Snow. She learned the rest from his sister, Molly, a whirlwind of a woman who owned a boutique next to Everbean and greeted Emma with a hug she wasn't ready for. "You're Emma? The Emma?" Molly said, eyes bright. "I'm an Emma." "Oh, honey." Molly looped her arm through hers. "Come on, we need tea." Inside Molly's shop, surrounded by knitted scarves and pine-scented candles, the truth unfolded. Lucas had once been a firefighter in Denver. 5 years ago, he'd been driving with his fiancée, Claire, when a truck skidded on black ice. Lucas survived with minor injuries. Claire didn't. After that, Molly said softly, he quit the department, moved here, opened Everbean. He's always been the one who saves people. Not being able to save her, she shook her head. He carries it like an avalanche waiting to fall. Emma stared into her untouched tea. "So when he pulled away last night, it wasn't you," Molly said. "It's the ghost he hasn't forgiven himself for." Emma pressed her lips together. "I don't want to be a replacement." "You're not," Molly squeezed her hand. "But he's scared you'll disappear too." Emma looked out the window at the falling snow. Fear, she understood that intimately. But love, that was harder. That night she found Lucas outside Everbean, shoveling snow even though the walkway was already clear. His jaw was tight, movements sharp. "Lucas!" He froze. "I talked to Molly," she said. He shut his eyes. "Emma, you should have told me. What good would it have done?" His voice cracked, anger edged with pain. "I save people for a living, Emma, except the one person who mattered most." She stepped closer. "You can't keep punishing yourself." His shovel hit the ground with a clatter. "I deserve someone who isn't broken," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "And I'm supposed to decide that for myself," she countered. His eyes lifted to hers, aching, vulnerable, raw. "Emma, I don't know how to do this without hurting you." She swallowed the tightening in her throat. "Then be honest with me. Don't pull me close just to push me away." Snow dusted their shoulders, breath misted between them. Finally, he whispered, "I'm trying." But trying wasn't the same as choosing, and she couldn't be a second choice after a ghost. So she stepped back. "Then maybe you're not ready." She walked away before he could see the tears. Chapter 5. The Blizzard and the Gate. Christmas Eve. Emma sat in the Denver airport, suitcase at her feet, camera bag heavy in her lap. Her flight to Tokyo, the next assignment, was grounded. Blizzard warning, delays indefinite. Passengers grumbled around her. Lights flickered. Snow battered the windows like frantic fingertips. Her phone buzzed. L. "Are you still in Aspen?" E. "No. At the airport. Blizzard. Waiting." A long pause. Then, "Stay where you are." Emma. "Lucas?" "Lucas. Please." She stared at the thread of messages. Her heart thudded. Outside, the storm howled. 90 miles away, Lucas gripped his steering wheel, headlights slicing through whiteout conditions. Snow hammered the windshield. Wind shoved the pickup sideways. He kept going. Because for 2 months she had been the bright, stubborn spark that lit up the edges of his life. Because he'd been a coward last night. Because fear had its place, but not here, not now, not with her. He drove through the storm and didn't stop. Emma was still sitting by gate C-17 when the crowd shifted, people murmuring as a snow-covered shape strode through the terminal. Her breath caught. Lucas. Hair dusted with frost, coat soaked, cheeks raw from the cold, and eyes locked straight onto hers. She stood before she realized she'd moved. He stopped a foot away, chest heaving. "I can't promise perfect," he said, voice rough from the cold and from everything else he'd carried for 5 years. "I can't promise I won't screw up or get scared or freeze at the worst possible moment." Emma swallowed hard, tears burning her eyes. "But I can promise this," his voice steadied. "I'll choose you every single day, even when it terrifies me, especially then." Silence stretched. Soft, shimmering. Emma stepped forward and pressed her forehead to his. "Okay," she whispered. Snow melted off his coat as he pulled her into his arms. The blizzard raged outside, but inside gate C-17, something thawed. Chapter 6. Christmas Morning at Everbean. The blizzard relented by dawn, leaving the mountains wrapped in a fresh white quilt. Frost clung to street lamps like spun sugar. Emma and Lucas drove back to Aspen in silence. But it wasn't an uncomfortable one. It felt like the quiet that settles after a confession or the pause before the first note of a song. Everbean was dark when they arrived. Lucas unlocked the door, flipped on the lights, and warm amber glowed across polished wood, hanging Edison bulbs, and the chalkboard wall scribbled with customers' doodles. Emma exhaled. She hadn't realized how much she'd already associated this space with him. "How long before people realize the storm's over and start demanding caffeine?" she asked, rubbing her hands. 10 minutes, maybe less. But Christmas Day crowds are slower." He shrugged off his coat, still damp from the drive, and hung it near the heater. Emma unwrapped her scarf, watching snowflakes melt into damp freckles on her cheeks. "Want to help me bake?" he asked. Her eyebrows lifted. "You mean actual baking? I thought baristas just pretend to understand ovens." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "Careful. I make a mean gingerbread." She grinned. "Prove it." He tossed her an apron. It was way too big. She rolled the straps 3 times before tying them successfully. As he mixed spices, ginger, cinnamon, nutmeg, the air filled with warm, nostalgic sweetness. Emma leaned on the counter, chin in her hand, watching him. There was a rhythm to his movements, confident and comforting, like someone who'd learned to focus on small routines to quiet the noise in his head. "You used to bake with Claire?" she asked gently. His hand paused over the bowl. For a moment she regretted asking. But then he nodded. She loved Christmas, everything from the tacky ornaments to the cheesy songs. I always thought gingerbread was childish, but she made me try her recipe every year." He smiled faintly. "I still use it." Emma touched the counter near his hand, not quite touching him. "Thank you for telling me." He met her eyes. "I want to." He added flour, stirred, rolled the dough. Soon the kitchen filled with soft music from the old speaker behind the counter, a mellow jazz rendition of "Let It Snow." Emma shaped gingerbread stars with a cutter. Lucas leaned beside her, bumping her shoulder playfully. "You're doing that wrong." "I'm not. You're absolutely mangling the stars, Rivers. They're rustic. It's an artistic choice." He laughed, a sound she wished she could photograph. They slid the tray into the oven. Emma perched on a bar stool, watching the snow glitter outside the windows. Lucas leaned against the counter opposite her, arms folded. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. Lucas's expression softened. "We don't run, not from each other," he said. "I know." She nodded slowly. He moved closer and brushed a strand of red hair behind her ear. "Emma, last night at the rink, I pulled back because I was scared, but I don't want to live like that anymore. I want to try again, for real." Her breath hitched. "I'm here. I'm choosing this too," she whispered. Their lips met, warm, steady, unhurried. Not a desperate spark, but a promise. The oven dinged. Lucas pulled away with a groan. "The gingerbread is killing my moment." She laughed, forehead against his. "We'll have other moments." But she knew this one mattered. Chapter 7. Learning the Shape of Us. Emma stayed at the inn for the next few days, officially for work, unofficially because Lucas kept texting. L. There's fresh snowfall on the trail to Maroon Bells. Sunrise shoot tomorrow. L. I'll bring coffee. L. Please say yes. She said yes, every time. They hiked early mornings, breath fogging, boots crunching, the world tinted lavender as dawn rose over the Rockies. Lucas carried a thermos of Everbean's darkest roast. Emma carried her camera like an extra limb. She photographed everything, the blue-pink sky, the fir trees heavy with snow, Lucas's profile when he wasn't looking. He pretended not to notice, but the flush in his cheeks gave him away. One morning as they walked along a narrow ridge, Lucas spoke quietly. "What scares you most?" Emma lowered her camera, surprised. "Why?" "Because I told you mine." She hesitated. Then, "Loving someone who wakes up one day and realizes they want something softer, or safer, or less complicated than me." "You're not complicated," she huffed. "I live out of suitcases and camera bags. My last relationship imploded because he said I loved my work more than him." "Did you?" Lucas asked gently. "I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe we both gave up too soon." Lucas nodded thoughtfully. "I don't want something safer. I want something real." She swallowed. "What if real is messy?" He smiled slightly. "Then we'll clean it up together. I am excellent with brooms." "Is that a firefighter skill?" "Absolutely." She nudged him with her shoulder. "Show off." They walked in easy silence until the sun fully crowned the peaks, washing the world in gold. Later that day, they had lunch at Everbean, squeezed into a corner table while skiers tromped by with snow-dusted boots. Lucas served her a sandwich, on the house, though she insisted on paying. He compromised by stealing half her pickle. Around them, townsfolk casually treated her like Lucas's person, and Lucas didn't correct them. But it wasn't perfect. That evening, she caught him staring at the mountains with an expression equal parts nostalgia and guilt. She slipped her hand into his. He blinked, then exhaled, shoulders relaxing. He was learning to hold the present instead of the past. She was learning to stay. Chapter 8. Cracks in the Glass. But even new snow hides uneven ground. 3 days before New Year's, Emma received an email from her editor, an urgent assignment in Patagonia for early January. It would mean leaving Aspen in 4 days. She sat rigidly on her bed at the inn, the glow from her laptop screen reflecting in her eyes. She knew this was her job, her life, the thing she had built for herself after her divorce, after rebuilding from nothing. But now it felt like a fissure splitting under her feet. She told Lucas that evening, sitting by the inn's fireplace. His jaw tensed at the news, just briefly. Then he nodded. "Okay, it's your dream. You should go." She exhaled. She didn't realize until then she'd been bracing for disappointment, but his calmness unsettled her. "You don't care?" she asked. He blinked. "Of course I care, but I'm not going to ask you to give up your work. That wouldn't be fair." For some reason, the perfect politeness of the answer pricked her skin. "Lucas," she said slowly, "this is the part where you're supposed to tell me how you feel." He hesitated. "I don't want to hold you back." "That's not the question." He rubbed a hand along the back of his neck, a sign she'd learned meant he was overwhelmed. "I don't want you to leave," he finally admitted. "But wanting and needing are different things. I can't need you to stay. That feels too close to Claire," she finished softly. Lucas flinched. The crack appeared between them, thin but sharp. She leaned closer. "I'm not her." "I know." "Then don't punish me for being someone who might stay." Lucas's eyes closed, pained. "I'm trying. But you're still scared I'll disappear." He didn't deny it. And that was the problem. Chapter 9. The Night of Falling Stars. December 30th arrived with fireworks being tested on the mountain and tourists flooding the streets. Emma walked through the snow-dusted square, her camera bag heavy, her chest heavier. She and Lucas hadn't argued, but they hadn't settled anything either. Their conversations danced around the fault line, never touching it directly. That night, he invited her to a quiet overlook above the town. The sky was clear for the first time in days, stars crisp and bright. He brought blankets. She brought a thermos of tea. They sat with their legs touching, their shared breath creating small clouds in the cold. Lucas looked up at the sky. You ever think about how there are stars older than everything we know? Emma smiled faintly. You're getting philosophical on me. Sorry, occupational hazard. Of being a barista? Of being someone who's had to start over. She rested her head on his shoulder. He swallowed. When you leave, will you come back? She closed her eyes. Do you want me to? Yes, he said immediately, then softer. But I don't want to be the reason you don't take an opportunity. She lifted her head, turning to him. The stars reflected in his eyes like tiny lanterns. Lucas, I don't need you to be my reason. I just need you to let me choose what I want. And what do you want? You, she whispered, and my work. Both. It doesn't have to be impossible. His breath caught. For a moment the wall he carried cracked, light slipping through. He cupped her face. The kiss was slow, deep, tender, a confession carved from starlight. When they finally pulled apart, he pressed his forehead to hers. I'm trying to be brave, he murmured. You already are. But he didn't say the words she hoped for. Not yet. And that left her unsure of how tightly she should hold on. Chapter 10. One More Sunrise. New Year's Eve dawned bright and cold. Emma packed her suitcase with stiff fingers, each item folded with a quiet ache. She wasn't leaving today. Her flight was the next afternoon, but the act of packing made everything feel final. Camera, lens kits, travel jacket. She zipped the suitcase shut. Outside, the morning sun lit the snow in sharp, glittering angles. Her phone buzzed. A message from Lucas. Lucas, meet me at the Overlook. Sunrise. Please. Her heart thudded. She grabbed her coat and raced out the door, boots slipping on patches of ice as she climbed the trail. When she reached the top, breathless, the sun was just beginning to rise, spilling gold over the Rockies, painting the clouds in rose and amber. And Lucas stood in the center of the Overlook. Beside him was a small wooden sign. Her breath caught. He held it up in both hands. Painted in simple black brushstrokes were the words, Will you stay for one more sunrise? He wasn't asking her to quit her job, or choose him over the world, or promise anything impossible. He was asking for now, for this, for one more beginning. Emma walked toward him, snow crunching beneath her boots. When she reached him, she lifted a hand to the cold wood of the sign. Just one? She whispered, teasing through the tightness in her throat. He smiled, soft, hopeful, real. As many as you'll give me. She set the sign aside and wrapped her arms around him, burying her face against his shoulder. I'll stay. For this sunrise, and the next after that. His arms closed around her, steady, warm, certain. Behind them, the sun climbed higher, spilling new light across the mountains. And Emma lifted her camera, capturing the moment. Lucas, the sunrise, the snow. A promise made of gold and morning air. One more sunrise, and the beginning of many.